Hi, I'm Liz and I work as a partner in a large accounting firm. Today I'm going to share with you my favourite tips to plan my week productively, get effective time management and get the most out of my working week. Now, often I think it's useful to understand what is causing you the issue. We all have as many hours in the day as Beyonce, and I think COVID has taught us that actually time's not really the issue, it's how much we try and fit into our days. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through my 8 favourite tips which help me plan my week productively and get the most out of it. Sometimes it's about beating procrastination and getting going. Sometimes it's understanding what I need to do first and where the priorities are. And other times it's just how to make sure I'm using my time most effectively and getting as much in as I can. So we're going to head into the video. I've left some timestamps below, so feel free to jump around and let's get into it. So how can a tomato, or the Pomodoro Technique, actually help your time management? So it's actually got nothing to do with tomatoes. It was invented by a guy who used a kitchen timer like this one, but his was in the shape of a tomato. So hence the fact it's called the Pomodoro Technique. But it's kind of really simple and a really effective tip to get going. So there's 6 parts to the Pomodoro Technique. The first is to write down what you need to do. So that helps you to understand what you're trying to get done and how much time. The second thing is set the timer to 25 minutes. And what you do is work solely on that task for 25 minutes. You don't check your phone, you don't check social media, you don't have a cup of coffee, you just work on the task in hand. Once the timer goes off, mark down what segment you're on. So for the first time you do it, pop a little 1 down. Once a 5-minute break is up, then get back to work and do another chunk. So repeat the same process, set a 25-minute timer, focus solely on your task at hand, and then wait for the timer to ring. You complete that 4 times in total, so you'll have worked for approximately a 2-hour block, and then you get to have a longer break, so somewhere between half an hour and an hour. Go out, get some fresh air, stretch your legs, do something physical, helps get your energy levels up. This way, I find that you can do anything for 25 minutes and you work uninterrupted. Put some Spotify music on, make it enjoyable, but just don't try and multitask. That's like the worst thing you can do. So that's the Pomodoro Technique, one of my favourite tips for beating procrastination and just getting going. Dwight D. Eisenhower was obviously president of the US, but had also led the NATO forces during the Second World War. So he knows a thing or two about emerging priorities and how to get on and do things. Eisenhower identified that he had 2 types of problems: the urgent and the important. The urgent were never important and the important were never urgent. So he developed a matrix, which I'm going to show you, which helps him to prioritise and understand what actions to take first. I use this matrix to help me sort through priorities either at the beginning of a week or the beginning of a working day to understand which tasks need my attention first and which perhaps I can delegate or move on to other people. So the first thing to do is draw a grid and label one axis as urgent and one as important, and draw 4 boxes. In those 4 boxes, we allocate 4 categories. The first is number 1, which is do. So those are things that fall into the important and the urgent bracket. We need to do these today. The second is important but not urgent, and those things are schedules. They need to be done and need to be done by us, but not right now. So we schedule a time in the future to do those. Number 3 is delegate, which is for the urgent but not the important. It needs to be done today, but not necessarily by me. So those are the things that I look to pass on to another team member or see if there's someone else who can pick these up. And the 4th and final box is eliminate. So those are things that are not urgent and not important. And actually we should stop doing those. Saying no or not doing things is as important as doing the right things. I found this tool really helpful to help me prioritise what needs to be done now and in the future, and if it needs to be done by me or one of the team. It's a great tip that helps you stop getting overwhelmed by the number of tasks you have to do and focus on the 2 or 3 things that are going to make a real difference. So if you're looking for a time management tip that's going to help you do the right things that are going to have the most impact, this is the best one for you. Over the last year, I found myself quite frazzled at the end of each day as I'm overwhelmed by Zoom calls, emails, WhatsApp messages, Slack, like the various different messaging platforms where my team are constantly trying to get hold of me as our clients. It often left me feeling overwhelmed at the end of the day, frazzled and feeling like I hadn't really achieved anything. So I came across this idea of time batching from Tim Ferriss, and I've put it into practice, and it's made a real difference into how I structure my day and what I'm able to get done. Time batching is the grouping of similar or identical tasks into the same time period. It's basically like the opposite of multitasking, where you just give a single type of tasks focus for a period of time. One way to think about this is if I had multiple items to post at the post office. I wouldn't make a trip for every letter. What I would do is wait until they were all ready to go and then batch them and do them together. When we're jumping between multiple tasks and we're trying to do too many things at once, we're wasting energy and we're less effective for doing so. One of the issues I found since working from home and working remotely through the pandemic is digital presenteeism, where I feel like I have to be online and available at all times, and often sees me jumping around between tasks during the day as things come in and I react to them. So now I batch my emails to look at them 3 times in a day, first thing in the morning, after lunch, and then before I clock off in the evening. I also sometimes switch off my Teams messages or other platforms during the day to give myself some clear work time where I'm not going to be interrupted and I can just focus on what I need to get done. If something is urgent, my team know to text or ring me rather than get hold of me through messaging. I then go through my list and prioritise my own to-dos as well as the stuff that's come in through email and that I need to action. I also use time batching on a weekly basis to try and group calls, online meetings and other core tasks. It gives me dedicated slots to do deep work and projects that I need to focus on. And in an ideal world, I like to clear time in the morning when my concentration is the best, and then leave the afternoon for more interactive things such as calls and meetings. However, much of my schedule is dictated by clients and their needs, so this doesn't always work. So time batching is a great tip that I use to help me save energy and maintain motivation and make sure I'm not flitting between tasks all the day. At work, I'm really used to having to account for my time. As with most professional services firms, I have to account for every 5 minutes of my day for chargeable time. So I'm really used to the time blocking concept. But the problem is that's a retrospective tool and doesn't help you to necessarily plan effectively. So I'm going to talk about time blocking, which is a really good way of making sure that you've got blocks of time in your diary to do what you need to. Apparently, Elon Musk uses time blocking and Cal Newport wrote about it in his article. So the easiest way to think about time blocking is thinking about when you were back at school. You had a very clear set timetable and you only do a single thing during that time period. So when you're in maths, no one asked you about science, and when you're in science, no one asked you about English. So the idea of time blocking is you set those blocks of time within your day to do dedicated tasks and you don't do anything else. So now I try and practice when I can to block my time in my diary to do dedicated tasks and work only on those things. So it means I'm not jumping between tasks all the time and that I just have a clear run to do a certain type of task. It fits into Parkinson's law of work expands to fit time. If you've got 2 hours to do something, you'll spend 2 hours. If you've got 20 minutes, you'll spend 20 minutes. There's 3 main benefits to time blocking. It reduces choice about what to do next. It's quite clear in your diary what you're going to do. It saves you jumping between different types of tasks and the energy levels that needs. It also allows me to batch, which increases my efficiency and productivity because I'm not jumping between things, and also I can match with my energy levels. There are 6 key elements to time blocking. The first is to write out what you need to do. The second is to estimate how long each thing will take. Then you allocate blocks of time when you can do those things. And also don't forget to schedule in comfort breaks or recharging breaks so that you're not on back-to-back tasks all day. The other tip I'd give you is to build in some time to react to other people. So there will be things that come into your inbox or phone calls that you're not expecting. So giving yourself some wiggle room in time blocking is also really important. Finally, I like to do this on a weekly basis, but you can do it on a daily basis, and it can be reactive. Try it for a few weeks, flex what works for you. Time blocking is great for 2 reasons. Firstly, it beats any kind of procrastination because you have to wonder about what you're going to do next. And secondly, it allows you to have really effective short spurts of time where you focus on different types of tasks, which helps your energy levels and also your focus. Another great tool for planning your time effectively is the idea of a time jar. So apparently a university professor stood up in front of his class and held up a glass jar which he filled with big rocks and asked if the jar was full, and his student said yes. And then he added in some smaller stones and pebbles which filled in the gaps, and he again asked if it was full, and the student said yes. And then he added in some sand which even filled it up even more, and then finally added in a cup of coffee because apparently you always have time for a cup of coffee with friends. This is a really helpful concept because sometimes we fill up our jars with sand. That might be emails, social media, scrolling, things which aren't really productive. So the idea of putting your big rocks in first and then filling up with those times helps you to prioritise. So those big rocks are those actions that you really want to do. It might be exercising, it might be eating healthily, it might be a report you need to do for uni, it might be any one of a number of things. And everyone's rocks are different and it might look different on different weeks for you. But the idea of putting those in first into your day and then filling it up with the other stuff means that you don't get to the end of the day wondering why you've not achieved anything. The world has run away with you and you haven't got done what you need to. So the next top tip I'd give you is to try and match the things you need to do when your energy is right. So for instance, I know that I am better in the mornings if I'm going to do something that's dedicated or detail orientated. If I try and do those things later on in the day, my mind's not really in it. I tend to make mistakes, and also it takes me a lot longer. So I know that by trying to block out time in the morning to do detail tasks works better for me. And then I try and do more creative or more varied tasks in the afternoon. So that might be brainstorming on strategy. It may be having like team meetings or like calls with clients. So what I try and do is flex my day to fit that. So you might be the other way around and might be a bit more of a night owl. So try and do your detailed work late at night and then have lighter tasks during the day. Of course, not all of us are lucky enough to have complete freedom over our schedules, and much of it may be dictated by your boss or co-workers. But if you can and where you can, flex what tasks you need to do with when your energy levels are going to be right. You may have heard the expression, eat the frog, and apparently it dates back to Mark Twain, who's alleged to have said, if the worst thing you have to do every day is eat a frog, make sure you do it first thing in the morning. If you have to choose between eating 2 frogs, pick the biggest and ugliest first. And the whole idea of this is that if you've got something you don't want to do or is a really hard or horrible task, do it first thing. Then it's out of the way and everything else in that day will seem much nicer. Brian Tracy has written a whole book about eating your frog, but the concept's really simple. Basically, do the worst thing you have to do first and then move on. Why I think this tip works really well for me is quite often I procrastinate or fill my time with other things to try and put myself off from doing the horrible thing. And ultimately, everything ends up taking me longer and I still have to do the horrible thing. So by doing it first thing, it means that I'm clear to enjoy the rest of my day and hopefully finish work a bit earlier and get on with something else. This tip also has the great concept of activation energy, which is just getting on and doing what you need to do. Like anything, it takes practice and there are no shortcuts. However, what I like about this tip is that it's really easy to apply and it's a really simple concept. It doesn't require lots of thinking about or lots of planning. You just get on and do the worst thing first. So how can a dead president help you with your to-do list? My other top productivity tip or time management is to think about a weekly planning session. So I quite often do this if it's about work. I do it on a Friday afternoon when your energy levels might be a bit low and you're kind of not being that productive. I look ahead for the next week and decide all the things that I need to get done, but also any pre-work I need to do. So if there are any meetings I need to prepare an agenda for or have my thoughts ready, or if I need to make travel arrangements or anything like that, I do it on a Friday afternoon. It means that next week's going to be more productive. I know what I need to do. And also I've done prep to make sure that those meetings are as effective as they can be and hopefully as short. I also do it in my personal life on a Sunday afternoon where I think about any household tasks I need to do, any kind of tradesman I need to book, anything I need to remember, like a friend's birthday, and I write that all out on a Sunday afternoon. Again, it just allows me to have priorities and I can diarise things like texting someone to wish them a happy birthday or ordering a gift. So what I really like about weekly planning is it gives you a bit of time to think about next week or what's coming up and make sure that you're as efficient in the future as you currently are. So there are my 8 top tips for planning my week productively and fitting in and prioritising everything that I want to. I'd love to hear your comments below on what's been helpful for you or what your favourite time management tip is. On my channel Simplification, we have tips, tricks and hacks to help you navigate your career and work effectively. So feel free to check out my other videos if you enjoyed this one.